councils such as here to maintain their ability to collect rates in an equitable manner. So really what I wanted to just touch on are the main drivers from an investor's point of from an investor's viewpoint, because it's important that the council actually understands this, so as to fully appreciate the likelihood of a significant increase in terms of risk to the council in terms of rateable income in the future. So it is the ETS. So what we've got with the new averaging system is we've got a minimum price, we've got a ceiling, there's rhetoric around lifting the floor and the ceiling. So at the moment the ceiling in the carbon is $35, it's currently trading at $43, and it's been de-risked because it's also underwritten. With the averaging you get about the first 18 years of carbon credits, so you don't have to repay those, they're yours to keep. So what we're seeing is a significant change in land use in forestry. At this stage there's no mechanism to restrict that, so therefore there's got to be an assumption that this will just carry on. So what I'd like to ask the council is to look through it with a 20-30 year lens, which is really important from a rating point of view. So land that was clear post 1990 is eligible for carbon, therefore it's logical that's where the investment sector looks. And as the carbon income nears its end, that land effectively devalues, because then it's only forestry rather than forestry and carbon. So forestry pre-90 has to stay in trees, therefore it's actually worth less. The investment sector is not particularly interested in it because it doesn't attract carbon. And Ash, I don't know whether you guys have seen that chart.
No,
which is that one there. Sorry, have you guys seen that?
I'll ensure that our governance advisor emails out that additional information.
Yeah, so look, there's been some really good work done up in Gisborne in terms of like for like with land, forestry, similar size, similar aspect versus farmland in terms of rates. So the pastoral sector, old LV versus new LV, has gone up 69%. Forestry, old LV to new LV has gone up 23%. So that has a significant impact in terms of future rating ability. I'm sorry, I was going to put these off, but I couldn't handle the spreadsheet. So, yeah, so for Gisborne, we've already got an existing disparity, and it's mostly production forestry versus pastoral, whereas that will only actually grow exponentially as we get carbon, no-cut forestry into the mix. So I'd urge the council to actually fully understand the implications and look at it through a 20-30 year lens, and to not only support the remit but to actually also strongly advocate to other councils for support, because the East Coast region of the North Island is one of the main areas that reforestation is likely to happen. So look, if there's any questions I'm happy to answer them, but otherwise thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and as I said, apologies for not getting the information, the additional Gisborne information out, but we'll ensure that goes out to councillors. Is there any questions of mine? There isn't. Thank you very much, Mike, and
thank you.
The forestry remit is on our agenda.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you. Okay, moving on now to item number 5, late items for inclusion. There is none. I just want to note though that you will see on your desk a replacement page. I think it's 139 or 138, 139 of the electronic version. So there has been a slight adjustment to that, and that's a replacement page. So just noting that you should all have a copy of that. Moving on to item number 6, items to be considered under section 48(1)A of the Local Government Information and Meetings Act. If we move, there's some minutes of the council meeting with public excluded on the 12th of May, emergency council meeting on the 16th of June, and report of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held with the public excluded on the 12th of May. Could I have somebody move that we accept those items in public excluded? Thank you, Councillor McClymont. A seconder, please. Thank councillor Mailman. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Moving on now to item number 7, confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on the 12th of May. That's page 101 of your agenda. The minutes are there. Could I have somebody move that we confirm those minutes? Moved by councillor Ryan, seconded by councillor Pearson. You had a query, councillor Holmes?
Under the Mary Walsh report, I voted against that motion. It's not recorded. I think I asked it.
Okay, what page are you on here?
102.
Okay. With that adjustment, it's been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion unless there's anything else. There appears not. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, motion is carried. Moving on again to the minutes of the emergency council meeting on the 20th. Oops, we've got here, we've got 2 lots of and the 20th of May. Oh, sorry, 20th of May. Okay, moving on to the 20th of May minutes. Could I have somebody move the confirmation of those minutes, please? Moved by councillor Ryan, seconded by councillor Nixon. Any items to be corrected? There appears to be none, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, motion is carried. Moving on to the next set of minutes on the 2nd of June. Once again, could I have somebody move the confirmation of those minutes, please? Councillor Mailman, a seconder. Councillor Hare. Question, Councillor Johnson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to bring to attention page 104. I've got a query. Point 1 down the bottom, it says that council moved to proceed with the preferred options detailed in the long-term plan, which was in the long-term plan to build the facility with external funding. However, I want to query point 2, which says that this work stream will run parallel to land acquisition and the design process, whereas in the public consultation document, it clearly states that the preferred option will mean we won't push go until we have confirmed external funding of $4 million. It also says we think this could be raised by 2022 or 2023. If it takes longer, the project could be delayed. So I'm querying that point 2 in the minutes from our meeting the 2nd of June do not actually line up with our public consultation document.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
I'm happy to talk to this later.
Yeah, because this is a confirmation of the minutes, so we can address that through that.
Civic facility discussion.
Yeah, you're okay with that?
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Holmes, did you have your hand up? Sorry. No, okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. Just on the long-term plan deliberations around the master revamp.
What page?
Page 105, going through the page 108. Just like it, I asked at the time for it to be noted that my vote against the revamp be recorded in the minutes, and it hasn't been. And I understand the same applies to Councillor Pearson as well.
Okay. So that would be page 108, isn't it? Yeah, 108, is it? Okay. Okay, with that change that's noted, it's been moved and seconded. So is there anything else? There appears to be not, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, motion is carried. Moving on now to the 16th of June minutes. Could I have somebody move, please? Councillor Nixon, seconded. Councillor McComont. Any changes? There appears to be not. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 11, the report of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 12th of May. That's page 401 of your agenda. The report is there. I'm happy to move that report. Is there a seconder for it, please? Seconder, Councillor Nelson. Okay, is there any corrections? Any questions from that report? Report of the Audit Committee, there appears to be not. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Moving on to the report of the Infrastructure and Services Committee held on the 9th of June. I'll hand over to Councillor Johnson to take us through that report.
It was an interesting meeting. We had 3 presentations from the public forum on the water resilience strategy, which we gratefully received. And we would receive 3 reports on community facility, infrastructure and strategic planning. Nothing of particular note to bring up. They were merely updated reports on each area.
Are you happy to move the report?
Happy to move it.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Holmes. Is there any questions on the report? No. Okay, I'll put the recommendations that are contained in the report to the meeting. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? The motion is carried. We now move on to item number 13 of the agenda, which is the adoption of the 2021-2031 long-term plan. We'll just take a minute or so to bring John Little, the Audit Director from Audit New Zealand, online. But we just have to do a bit of shuffling to bring him in.
Hi, so I'm here, if you can hear me. All right? Can you hear me all right? Hi. Hi.
He's a busy man today. He's got, I know, the 3 Wairarapa Council audit reports through today, and no doubt he's got some others.
Hi.
Here he is.
Hi.
Can you hear us, John?
You can't hear me?
We can't hear you.
Hi. Can you hear me? Oh,
Hi, John. Can you hear us?
yes.
Can't hear you still. I just wondered if another staff member might want to. Do you need Ben
Do you want to try
White
connecting
here?
more?
Eric, it's a staff member. Thank you, Steve.
Just see this one, you unplugged the device. I was like,
We'll just try from another computer quick.
quiet ventilating.
Hi, John. Can you, no? Oh, we've got you. Okay. Welcome, John, to, oops.
Thanks. Yeah, we can hear you all right. I'm just connecting through Valerie's computer. Might seem to have an issue.
Okay. We can't see you now. Here we are. We see you now, we hear you now. Welcome to our council meeting. We have received the modified audit report, and just hand over to you to speak to the report and the LTP.
All right, thank you. So we've completed the work we needed to issue our opinion. From the CD stage of the audit, in terms of the initial draft of the LTP, our work at this round has focused a lot on any changes that happened post the consultation stage. Some of the key changes that we needed to consider was around moving of the capital program between different years of the plan, following council's decision on consultation, specifically around the CBD revamp, as well as reducing some of those capital programs down. There was also the Wakakotai reduction in funding from Austin, which was quite significant for the first 3 years of the plan. And then one of the consultation items, the alternative option, was selected for the Panama housing, which needed to be adjusted for in the financial statements as well. There was also quite a change to the way that external debt was to be used versus internal debt. So those are some of the key changes. There was also a couple of immaterial changes due to staffing and revenue streams, etc. So although the number of key changes doesn't sound significant, those changes do have an impact on a lot of other aspects of the financial statements, such as depreciation and revaluations, etc. So we needed to work through all of those changes. And that brings us to a position where we are able to issue our opinion. I would like to just go through the opinion and highlight to you some aspects of that in terms of what the opinion covers, as well as the responsibilities of council and us as the auditors. So firstly, in terms of the long-term plan, the Local Government Act requires council prepare this in terms of the requirements and include the information in terms of Part 1, Schedule 10 of the Act, and that we as the auditors complete an audit report over this information in terms of Section 94. The opinion we've reached after concluding our work is that the plan provides a reasonable basis for long-term integrated decision-making and coordination of the council's resourcing, and also accountability of the council to the community. The other significant aspect of our opinion is that the information and assumptions underlying the forecast information in the plan are reasonable. And the last aspect of our opinion is that the disclosures required in terms of Part 2 of the local government regulations are complete and accurate. It's tantamount to an unqualified opinion in terms of a statutory set of accounts. So we have no material issues to raise. We have included 2 emphasis of matter opinions in our report without modifying our opinion. The first one is over the water reforms of government. This was included in the CD opinion as well. And it's got to do with the uncertainty around those reforms. Although announcements are expected later this year, the council assumption is that it will continue to provide those water services as a business as usual basis, and that how the plan has been prepared. But after the announcements, it's anticipated that that'll have a significant impact on the council services. We've also included an emphasis of matter around the uncertainty over external funding related to anticipated support for the Panama housing project. And the reason for including this emphasis of matter is not because we think that the $2.5 million is unreasonable in terms of council's plans, but rather that it's not progressed far enough yet, that there's still a significant uncertainty over whether or not council will be given that funding. One of the options is to apply for that funding through the New Housing Acceleration Fund, which would have a competitive part to the fund, but this would be contested against other proposals, etc. So there is some uncertainty over this, as well as the other partners, as to how they may choose to partner with council in delivering this plan. Underneath the basis of our opinion, we elaborate there that we have assessed the evidence that council has to support the information and disclosures in the plan, as well as the applications of its policies and strategies into the forecast information. Then we go on to say that we select appropriate procedures to assess this information based on the risk of material misstatement. So we are interested in material errors to the plan in forming our overall opinion. On the last page of our opinion, it covers the responsibilities of council and the auditor. So council is responsible for meeting all legal requirements affecting its procedures, decisions, the consultation, disclosures and other actions relating to preparation of the plan, as well as preparing the financial information in accordance with generally accepted accounting practices and having adequate systems and processes that this is not materially misstated. Our responsibility is to express an opinion as required by the legislation, and we do not express an opinion on the merits of the plan's policy content. Our opinion also does not provide any assurance that the forecasts in the plan will be achieved, because it's reasonable that some information, as plans don't always turn out the way that they anticipated to, and variations to any forecast plans may be material. In order to guarantee the accuracy of the information in the plan, specifically because it's a forecast looking, it's just based on reasonable assumptions and the underlying documents being reasonable. So I thought I'd just highlight that in terms of our opinion, what it does cover and what it doesn't. There's nothing further from me on that side. If there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, John. I will open up for questions. Councillor Nixon.
Kia ora, John. Can you hear me?
Can you hear?
It's Tina Nixon speaking. Can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear you?
I was just curious to know how many of all of the councils that you have audited have received unqualified audits and how many didn't?
I'm not sure on the total number of audits that we do that are qualified. In terms of the ones that I specifically look at, they've been unqualified. I know there are some councils around the country who have been qualified because of not effecting the changes of the Waikatai funding, etc., where they've left their plans unchanged. There have also been issues around external grant funding, such as the emphasis of matter we've included for Masterton, and in some cases that funding has been deemed unreasonable to include, which changes the aspect being reported on from one of uncertainty to an error. But I'm not sure of the overall numbers.
Okay. Councillor Nelson.
Kia ora, John. Just I note that you've got the uncertainty over the external funding for the Panama housing project. Do you have uncertainty over the external funding for the Civic Centre facility as well? Or why isn't there uncertainty over that?
So when we looked at the amount included for the Civic Centre, it was a lot more progressed in terms of having identified partners who were identified as being targeted by the council to provide that funding. There was also a history of supporting similar types of funding, for those partners that were involved. So in terms of the identifying key partners having a history, it reduced that uncertainty to an extent where we didn't think it was, necessary to include an emphasis matter around that. Whereas this funding is in its very early stages. There's no clear partners, there's no clear history of funding for it. So it's been assessed on a different basis.
Thank you. John, I just had a question and then I'll go to Councillor Peterson. The Three Waters reforms emphasis of matter, is that on council's right, that emphasis of matter right through the country?
Yeah, that's a standard emphasis of matter for all opinions issued on behalf of the Auditor General.
Councillor Peterson.
Kia ora, John. John, I'm just following up on clarification of our phone conversation this morning. I've raised with you a query that, and maybe I misunderstood your role versus the council's role, and maybe that's explained in your report here today, we've got tabled today. On page 13 of our consultation document, it says clearly that there are two options for the Civic Centre and for the town revamp, and in fact for the housing project as well. But in the consultation form that people got, the online form, it clearly says that there are not two options, there are three. There's a do-nothing option. And I just wonder, is that our slip-up or is that yours in not ordering it properly? I mean, I can see how it would have happened. You probably would have already had this document when we released it for consultation, because it was at that meeting, I think if I recollect rightly, that I and I think Councillor Nelson said that we wouldn't agree to its release unless there was a third do-nothing option. And that was agreed. Thanks to the council and to the others, and we all agreed. But I can see that there was a slip up between the two documents, and what I was asking you was whether you had seen the two documents, and whether that's material, and whether it's material to us or to whether it's our slip up or whether it's yours. And I'm sorry if I didn't quite understand you this morning. It's either my phone or my ears. I don't know.
Or both.
Or both.
Yeah, so that's fine. The consultation process is not included in the scope of our audits. The consultation process and the council's responsibility to meet all the legal requirements around the consultation and the management thereof. So the forms, etc., that you're referring to as part of the submission process, we don't audit those forms. So in terms of a material issue for us, there's no issue that would stop us from issuing our audit opinion.
So thank you, John. I take it from you that it's our balls up, not yours.
So if there's any issue that's identified, that's for council to consider.
Okay, is there any other questions of John? There isn't. I understand you've had a busy day today, John, and just thank you very much for zooming in, and thank you to the audit team.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. If there's no further questions, then I'll leave.
Yeah, Are you able to stay on in case there is any other further questions coming through now?
Yeah.
Or, okay, if you are able to, that would be good. Thank you, John, I appreciate that. Okay, moving on to the report. You have the report, page 121 in front of you. Councillor Nixon?
Your Worship, I would like to move the recommendation of the adoption of the long-term plan and the recommendations as listed. Do you want me to read them out?
The A, B, C. Are you looking at page 121?
Yes, I am.
A to F?
Yes.
No, I think councillors had those in front of.
So the ones on our agenda are taken as read, and I would also like to add an extra recommendation. And that recommendation will now be G. And that is that, subject to the successful negotiation of the purchase of the preferred site for the new civic facility, Council requests staff to investigate future options such as the sale or lease for the municipal building, which must include an option to retain the facade.
Okay, I think Harriet's going to bring that up. Can I just for clarification, Councillor Nixon, on D, given we've got that replacement page that we alluded to at the beginning, that you're happy under D that we change that to state attachment 1, including replacement page 138.
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay. Did councillors receive a copy of that change? Just including. Oh, there it is there. Okay, so it's adopt the 2021-31 long-term plan, include, etc. Yeah, okay. And you've listed a G. Okay. So you're moving that? Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Marley. Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so did you want to speak to speak to.
Your Worship, I just want to add that basically this amendment is aimed at ensuring that we do not lose sight of the community's desire to retain the town hall facade, which was mentioned at the protest today. And I think we're all aware of it as well. So we are now looking to vote for a new purpose-built civic centre that is fit for the future, and I'm really proud of that. Marston has grown the equivalent of populations of Martinborough and Featherston in the last 5 years, and it shows no sign of slowing down. So we definitely need to look to the future. This amendment is designed to test the market's appetite for other uses for the municipal building, which will include the proviso of retaining the facade. Who knows, it might become a hotel or an office building, and we don't know what creativity will be unleashed in the community. There is definitely private sector interest in this site. One developer signalled his interest to me recently, as did another Wellington investor who was looking to buy up property here. So it will be interesting to see what proposals we will get. So with that, without further ado,
It's open for discussion, but I didn't know, Bex, did you want we address that issue that you've raised here?
No, I'll talk shortly, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Holmes and Councillor Gifford.
I'd like to ask you, what happens if the vendor turns you down and you don't get the property that you're acquiring? I'd like to see some sort of a clause there to say that we still have the option to use the town hall site. So I couldn't agree with you.
Just for clarification, the beginning of the recommendation that Councillor Nixon has put forward, can we, oh sorry Harry, you're back. Oh, say it at the bottom, subject to, this is subject to. Okay. Councillor Gifford.
Your Worship, I find this really, really interesting because I've brought this very thing up for the last 3 years and wanted you to do this for 3 years. And on the day of the march, with 1,500, 2,000 people out there, you bring it up. It's like an appeasement to me. The fact of the matter, in my opinion, is that this was going to happen anyway because you're going to use this money to build your new facility. And I would like to see, if you're going to do that, why don't we become really honest and say that we'll also sell the library land and buildings. Let's put that in there too. Let's put that in as part of it. Because that's what's going to happen. But I find it, I just can't understand why yourself, Councillor Tina and others didn't support when I brought this up constantly to do this. And it wasn't brought up until today. I applaud you for doing it, but the timing I think is very interesting.
Okay. Is there any other? Councillor Peterson.
Yes, I think this is very apt that it's been raised now because I think it's a deflection and it really just goes to show just how much confusion there is in the community. I mean, the point of what's being proposed here isn't really the question that we're deciding today. Today we're deciding what's going to happen with the town hall or the civic centre proposal that was decided on and passed in December at a council meeting here. That it's about the civic centre, wherever it may be. It's not about what may or may not happen to this building that we've been in recently. So I think it's as I say, I think at some stage it may well be something that we will all support, but it's not the point at this moment in time. We're here to decide whether we should be funding the civic centre project as proposed down at the north end of town.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
And that confusion was just shown today by the demonstration around the town hall. That wasn't in question at this point in time.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
As you're aware, I'm totally opposed to building a $30 million civic facility. I'm strongly opposed to burdening our residents and ratepayers with this years when we could be using our current assets, rebuilding and repurposing our current sites such as the Civic Centre and the library. My understanding is that this can be achieved for a lot less, and I believe the public consultation was flawed, that the engagement was nonsensical because the community didn't have all the information which we could have given them, and we would have received informed feedback. This process has been questioned by multiple parties and is currently with the Ombudsman. So how can we progress this project further when we don't even know the outcome of these inquiries? The other thing is too, which I brought up earlier, is in a vote last week, a close vote of 6 for and 5 against, the preferred option was accepted. The preferred option was build the facility with external funding of $4 million. It says in our public consultation document that this option will mean we won't push go until we have confirmed the external funding of $4 million. We haven't confirmed any funding, and yet there's $4.9 million in the first year of the LTP, which says this is for land acquisition and designs. It then says we think we could raise $4 million by 2022 or 2023. If it takes longer, the project could be delayed. We haven't even got the external funding, so why have we got $4.9 million in the first 12 months of our long-term plan? We should be pushing the pause button, not the go button. Our company A can't afford this luxury. B, what if we never get external funding? In 2 years' time we're going to go, oops, let's charge the ratepayers another $4 million, and we have current assets that could be, like phoenixes, rise from the ashes and be in the best interests of our community. We are elected to serve and represent our community, and I don't believe a $30 million debt, a $30 million civic facility is in the interests of our community. If I was to make a recommendation, I would take the civic facility out of the long-term plan.
Is there any other, Councillor Ryan?
Your Worship, I support Councillor Nixon's recommendation G because it gives clarity to the public on the future of the municipal building, which they have been asking for.
Councillor Nelson.
Strongly support what Councillor Johnson has just said. I think the consultation process was so incredibly flawed, and I can't see how decisions can be based upon that process. That was raised at the very beginning of the whole process around the online submission process. So many people have spoken to me, have spoken on social media, have spoken to other councillors in the room, and I'm sure to council staff about how flawed that process was. This includes 2 other principals, I know I've raised this before, but I'm going to raise it again, who couldn't do the process. They chose not to because it was so confusing, and so many others afterwards. Aside from that, we have on page 122 of the minutes, we have to show accountability to our community. We haven't shown accountability to our community because the process was so flawed in the first place. It also says provide an opportunity for participation by the public in council decision making. Partly that's true, but not fully, again because the online process wasn't rigorous enough. How can we base a decision on that? And even then, at the end of the day, 54% of people, and let's forget about that fabricated 51% that someone came up that said that public supported the project, 54% of people said they didn't want the project to go ahead, yet it was still passed 6-5. I find that completely astounding. The recommendation that Councillor Johnson just suggested to remove the civic facility from the long-term plan, I would endorse.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? We'll take everybody that wants to speak first. Councillor. Oh, have you spoken, Councillor?
I only asked a question.
Okay.
If this motion is passed in its entirety today, the majority of the councillors have not listened to the public. And that's been proved in no uncertain terms by the number of people who turned out today in a cold day to support the saving of the hall. Now, Councillor Cappell's notice of motion, which was rejected, was actually just what is needed without getting the LTP, upsetting the LTP. By leaving the budget in, but withdrawing the Civic Centre for a period of time or pushing the pause button made so much sense. Not being able to name the site has caused so much confusion, and I'm told that commercial sensitivity could have been alleviated with one conversation. Not knowing where the site is going to be has been a major problem. What happens if the Trustland Trust reject the offer? Which may happen, and I would oppose any talk of the Public Works Act ever being used. The council offer has to be above market value and pass the Trustlands Trust audit. They may reject it. I suspect that it has to be in the community's interest. From what I've read and what I've heard, and especially what I've seen today, I'm damn sure it's not in the public's interest. We already own a site in the centre of town. Let's use it. Failing to pass the LTP today is not the end of the world, as we were told. It just means that the rate increase is deferred for the first quarter. The council should not proceed further with this project until a multitude of concerns are addressed, and one that does concern me is the $4 million external funding. I support Councillor Johnson.
Is there any other comments? Tito?
Kia ora koutou. I will just take us back to our LTP deliberations. Again, I'm having to repeat myself again, is that this council's inability to make decisive decisions and stick to them is always going to be something of public interest, because again, we're going backwards. We're going and saying, we don't want to do this, we want to push pause. We don't have much time to be able to implement the kind of future that I want to see my mokopuna, to be able to utilise these facilities adequately. Now, the town hall facility is absolutely out of the question. We and our people deserve a facility that's going to be fit for purpose. Again, this council's backtracking because they say they're listening to the public, and yes, the consultation was flawed, but the people that I've seen, the younger generation that are coming up, that are actually ratepayers, that don't have the time to attend these sorts of meetings and do not always have the time to be engaged with, saying, what would we use that for anyway? A new, fit-for-purpose, family-orientated civic centre that enables all and touches all parts of the community is what's needed for Masterton, and it's what's deserved for Masterton. And I'm not just talking from a Māori worldview point of view either. I'm talking for an all-purpose, all-ages facility that is not going to be an elephant, a white elephant that has to be then. What was the motto for the LTP? Yeah, our mokopuna deserve a better facility. And now we're seeing an indecisive council again say, oh, hang on a minute, a small group of people, and I'm going to say a small group of people, have just said they don't want to see that go. Well, that's key to play, but at the cost of a new facility that actually will engage the community fully. You know, this is now the time to start making action, because we do not have the time to muck around. Every time we have a council meeting that this is going on and we keep backtracking is costing money. And it's ratepayers' money, but it's also the future that we're thinking about here for our mokopuna, which was the LTP. It's the future for our mokopuna. Having a white elephant like a town hall where they didn't really have a say because they're not even born yet. Can we please just think about the future? Because all I'm hearing is about the bloody past, and I really want to hear about the future. Kia ora.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've stated my opinion publicly, and I've got no reason to change what I said. This debate is always about 50-50, and it won't change. It won't change in 6 months' time from the position it's in at the present time. Or 3 years ago, it was 50-50. The 50-50 will still be there in 6 months' time. We reached as a council in December to go 9-2 to build a facility that included a library, a performing arts centre, and other facilities, some information hubs and so forth. That was 9-2. We decided at 8-3 to go up to a preferred site north. We decided that. We decided that in December. And here we are again. When we went out to consultation on, in terms of the funding of that facility, not on where it was going to go. We're looking at 2 structurally deficient buildings. And from the information I have gained in Christchurch and other places where you build on structurally deficient buildings, that comes with an extra cost. And have a look at what happened in Wellington, have a look at what happened in Lower Hutt. It's about, for me, it's about vision. And having something for the future, something for 30 to 50 years, that reflects our multicultural society. Not just Maori, Filipino, Pacifica, Indian, Chinese, whatever. But it's going to be increasing multicultural society. It's also about meeting the needs for our digital needs, because that's forever changing. And also it's a place where old and young can meet. And so I have no trouble in supporting the long-term plan.
Okay, is there anybody else that wanted to speak? Is yours to speak or for an amendment?
I want to speak first.
No, we'll put your amendment if you're putting an amendment.
Just the amendment would be to support Councillor Johnson that we push the pause button and exclude the Civic Centre proposal from the long-term plan.
Have you got an amendment worded?
No, I haven't. No. This is all, in my whole 20 years on this council, this is the most formal approach to a decision that was ever made.
I don't know whether pressing a pause button is a legitimate amendment on the council.
Well, I don't know whether
So I'm
it
not
needs to
saying
be legitimate or not. It's the wish of the people, really.
We've said in our consultation document that unless we have the external funding, we can't push go.
Okay,
What I really want to
just
do
a
is-
minute, please be seated.
What I really want to do is just to respond to Fraser. Look, this is all about vision. It's just that we have different visions of the future. In December 2020, when we made that decision, that was before COVID. That was before we have all this stuff coming out about climate change and the situation that we're in. We saw the editorial in today's Times Age from Grace, to say that we're just not doing enough about it. This is a distraction from the real issues. If we spend that 30 million now and the 30 million on the revamp, we haven't got that money to deal with some of the really important things that we're going to be facing in the near future. With respect to Fraser, and he's entitled to his opinion, and maybe it's all like chicken entrails, but we made the future is not going to be like the past. It can't be a business as usual proposal tarted up.
I hear what you're saying, but are you speaking to your amendment?
No, not really.
Well, what is your amendment?
Well, the amendment is that I support BEPS.
That's not.
The amendment is that we put a pause on the Civic Centre proposal until such time as some of the misgivings and the misunderstandings and the misinformation and the confusion of the community can be sorted out.
I think I'll go to Bex for
I just
possibly
wondered
the
whether we could
amendment.
make a suggestion that we remove the civic facility from the long-term plan until the $4 million of external funding is confirmed.
Okay, so
Because
that's,
that's actually what we promised in
yeah,
our document.
okay, so that's better wording.
And that also gives some time to see what else pops up.
So so just read it through again.
If we
So,
withdraw the civic facility from our long-term plan until such a time as the $4 million of external funding is confirmed. Because as I sound like a stuck record, that's what it said in the consultation document.
okay.
And there's
I'm
better
just-
wording,
no,
but it's not by
no,
section.
I'm just going to just get some advice on that because I think that's a revocation of a previous decision of council.
Because
Okay.
what we've got, sorry, just one thing, what we have got in here in point 2 does not reflect the preferred option that we consulted on.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll just go,
So that could be H
yeah.
on the adoption of the long-term.
No, it can't be. So, is John still online?
Yep.
It says yes, it's on you.
Yeah.
So, John, just want, from an audit perspective, if that civic facility funding is revoked out of the long-term plan now, which is 4.2 or 4.9 million, does that change your opinion, or can we still proceed with an unmodified opinion and pass our LTP today?
Apologies, Lynn, the sound's actually quite bad. Would you mind repeating that?
Yeah.
John, it's Kath Ross, just because I've got a slightly louder voice. So the question from the Mayor was, if we took the Civic Centre Year 1 funding out of the long-term plan now and said that we would remove it until such time as we had secured $4 million, would that be, in essence, a material change to the audited documents, and would we be able to adopt our LTP today?
Are you just shifting it to year 2 then?
No, we're not. We are, there's no certainty. So we actually can't guarantee any of the numbers on the civic facility as you have audited them.
So if you took up, you're taking out the 4 million contribution, the external contribution,
Taking
the
out the whole
expenditure.
item.
No, in essence, we'd be taking the whole lot out and saying that we would put it back in when we got $4 million. So the general question is, that sounds material and would require potentially a re-audit. So could we adopt the LTP today?
Well, that would be a material change to the financials if you remove all that expenditure. So we would need to relook at it again.
Okay. And that
To
bridges.
check all those changes and stuff. I mean, that's not what we've audited.
Yeah. So that.
Yeah, and that's all I can really, I mean, that, we haven't looked at any change like that. We haven't considered any change to that effect. I mean, that's up to council. If they want to make those changes, then we'll just need time to look at it.
Okay.
Just see if this is...
Okay.
Bex, you were just asking for a pause until that got one.
Just a minute.
That's not what he said, it's not the removal.
Okay. Okay, look, there's, yeah, I'm not, yeah, I think it was seconded, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought, yeah, seconded by Councillor Holmes. I'm actually, yeah.
Sorry, I just
So if there is an extension for you to do this audit, would that also mean an increase in the level of service that you have to provide for us to get it done?
It would have,
And so that would then in turn mean more money to expend on making either a removal or amendment to the audit for the LTP.
Not 30 million.
But no, but it extends time.
come on, let's have some order round the table.
I was just asking the question.
No, not you, others calling out. Okay, look, I'm going to put that, did you get that amendment?
Can we remove the Civic Centre from the LTP until such time as the $4 million is secured, was what I had.
External funding, please.
Can we speak to that? We'll speak to that again because there's a new thing.
It's been moved and seconded. Councillor Peterson's already spoken to it, so Councillor Caffell.
Yes, Your Worship. I think what this whole debate is doing is really just, as was mentioned perfectly in that motion, is we're looking to actually have a pause, to take a step back and to sort of reflect on what's happened over this whole process. We're not asking anybody here around this council table to personally change your minds. We're simply asking you to defer a decision so that we can be better informed, and not only the people better informed, but us better informed, because we're not well informed on this at the moment. I'd just like to expand on a couple of things, if I could, Your Worship, as to on this. Once the location for the preferred option is revealed, shouldn't we be asking our ratepayers if they are happy with it before deals are done? Shouldn't we actually, I mean, it's all very well to say we've got a preferred option, but shouldn't we be saying to the people, well, it's going to be here, what do you think? Is that a great idea? Shouldn't we also be telling them what will happen to the library? I mean, we've now got this wonderful appeasement for the town hall and municipal buildings, and the, you know, I really am grinning about the timing of it. I think it's almost hilarious. But anyway, the library, it's pretty obvious to us who think about this that the council's going to put that on the market as well, the land and the buildings, to help pay for the civic facility. It just seems certain that happen. So why don't can we do that before we ask the people whether that's a great idea? The people might want to use those buildings for something else. We're just going to do it. I also think that if we're going to raise funds for a new civic centre, shouldn't we be completely specific on how those funds are going to be raised? I mean, going into any major project without an exact plan on future funding is hardly confidence building for our ratepayers. You hear a lot about, and it was mentioned before by one of our iwi reps, that we've had this X number of consultations and we should move forward. I think that's a nonsense. We have to get the process right. And I don't give a stuff whether it takes another 2 years, quite frankly. We're talking about $30 million. We have to get it right. And I think we also have to show a willingness to listen to public opinion. I mean, you guys around this table, you've already deferred the CBD revamp because of public opinion. You've reduced the dog registration fees because of public opinion. You're repairing the tractor and the bulldozer at Kids Home because of public opinion. You've got 1,000 or 1,500, whatever it is, people out there today walking around the thing, and suddenly we've got a motion that will look after the town hall and municipal buildings. About 1 hour after that happened. Look, I know it's easy to say in these things that the detractors are grandstanding, seeking to increase popularity, all this sort of stuff, you hear it all the time. Frankly, I think that's disrespectful. I think we're all here trying to do a decent job. I say the same to those who see the new civic facility as being a legacy for you people who are voting in the opposite to mine. I'm hearing that. It's saying it's a legacy to these people. I think that's disrespectful as well. I don't think it is. I believe we're all trying to resolve this issue in the best possible way. And for me, if a short deferral or a deferral of any time is going to do that, then let's do it.
Is there anybody else that wanted to speak to the amendment? Well, you can speak to the amendment. The amendment now is the... Okay, well, it's been moved and seconded, so I'm going to put the amendment, and I don't know whether you've got that up on able to... Oh, yeah, do you want to read? Well, if you can just read it, or Kat can read it, yeah.
To withdraw the civic facility from the long-term plan until the 4 million of external funding is secured.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded, it's been discussed, I'm going to put that amendment. All those in favour, please, of the amendment, please raise your right hand. Those against? Motion is not carried. Okay, so now we go back to the original motion that was put forward by Councillor Nixon and seconded by Councillor Mailman. You've already spoken to the motion. I'll just see if there's anybody else that wants. Yeah, but I'll go round and you get the last say. I think most of you have spoken. If there is anybody else that wanted to speak that hasn't spoken to the original motion. Okay, I'd just like to say a few words as well. So to me, this LTP is about the future. I think it was said eloquently by Tito. That's what LTPs, long-term plans, are all about. It sets our direction for the next 10 years and beyond. And so for me, very much so, is our responsibility as being a voice not only for the current generation but also the future. So I reflected on this just before this meeting, and I thought, how can I best sum up that from my perspective? So we're a creature of statute. That's what local government is. So I looked at our legislation and looked at the purpose of local government. The purpose of local government is two. There's two of them. To enable democratic local decision making and action by and on behalf of our communities. And this is the most important part from my perspective, to promote the social, cultural, environmental and economic well-being of communities in the present and for the future. So our responsibilities is that we always must look not at what it is today, but about our future. And we will all see that purpose through a different lens and have a different view on it. But that's very much, I think, the focus, which is why I support the motion that's been put forward. So I think I'm the last one that hasn't, unless anybody else wants to, I'm going to put the motion that has been moved and seconded, and I offer Tina a right of reply.
Your Worship, thank you. Just for a point of clarification, I think Mark's will probably be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but actually I did talk about the use of the funds from the town hall to be used for the civic centre, and I think it was quoted in a newspaper story a couple of weeks ago. So this is not something that has come out of the blue. And in terms of the town hall and it being able to reflect the aspirations of future generations, I heard someone waffle on today about the whakapapa of that building out there. And I talked to one of our rangatira here on the phone afterwards, because I was absolutely gobsmacked that anyone could think that that has the whakapapa of our two iwi here. And he just laughed and he says, we want you to build a building with our whakapapa in it. So that's why I support a new civic centre. And I have listened to the people of this town. I've listened to the young people and I've listened to the old people. of this town, some who are saying, hey, we do want something for our populace. And we need to listen to our Māori as well, as you've heard here today. I'd also like to say that I'm sick of this cost to the ratepayer being 30 million. It's not. Because if we have the money from the town hall, if we have the money from the library site, and if we have the money from external funding, that cost is going to be hugely decreased. And one of the things that we have been unable to probably clarify as much as we would like to is around the issue of external funding. I can tell you right now that a building that actually represents all of our people will attract government funding. A revamp of something like that over there, that white building that has no whakapapa, that's the sort of building that will not attract the same amount of government funding. So we need to have a building that does reflect us, that is green, Chris, because that is actually what we need for our future here in this town. And if you look at all of the most significant and successful civic centres around this country, they incorporate libraries. And so that is one of the reasons why I supported that notion that the library needs to go with the civic centre in the town, up in that area, with all of that precinct around it. Something that really stands out for our people and that tells the story of our people for generations to come. So that is why I have been extremely supportive of a civic centre, and we can do it within a moderate increase in terms of rates. We're still way under the average for councils across this country, and yet we can do that with the civic centre in there. So with that, Your Worship, I recommend that we do the recommendation.
Thank you. So I'm going to put the motion, and so I ask that people raise their right hand. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your right hand. Okay, those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. I just want to add a few comments at the end of this, and I really, now that we've adopted our 2021-31 long-term plan, so on behalf of elected members, I sincerely thank staff for all the work that we know that you have had to undertake to get us here today with the approval of the LTP. The thousands of hours of work that collectively our staff right across the organisation have been required to do, from 30-year infrastructure strategies, financial strategies, significant assumptions, performance standards, fees and charges, policies, etc., and then all the work and bringing it all together in a document. Thank you. We have heard it. We have heard from Audit New Zealand Audit Director today and received our unmodified audit report. Previously, we received the tick on our long-term plan consultation document, of which the auditor's report is on the last 2 pages of that document. On our engagement and consultation processes, what is the right process for many in our community isn't always the best for others in our community, and this is always a challenge. As elected members, we recognise that lessons can be learned from every consultation process, and as elected members, we will always look to improve. I acknowledge that for some in our community, the information gap for keeping commercially sensitive information out of the public domain was frustrating. However, commercial realities must be respected as we are stewards of our ratepayers' interests. Now the long-term plan has been signed off, we can begin the process of building a modern, multi-purpose civic facility with our library as its heart, that is designed to meet the needs of our future generations and our fast-growing community. We will ensure that we keep the public informed every step of the way as we build this facility, which we are confident will reflect our rich and diverse community. So thank you everyone, and I'll now move on to item number. Oh, sorry, John, you're still there. Thank you. Thanks very much for staying online, John.
Oh, sure, thank you. Okay, I'll leave now.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to item number 14, page 130 of the agenda, and that is the rates resolution for 2021. So this is the legal requirement, and I'm not too sure whether, if we're all clear on this, that David, did you need to speak to it? No, I can just put it. Okay. So the rates resolution is there on page 130 through to 137. Is there any questions of the report? There are none. So I'm going to move the recommendations there on page 130. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Gear. It's been moved and seconded. If there's no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Councillor Johnson, you want that recorded?
Thank you.
Okay. Motion is carried. Moving on now to item number 15, the 2021 local government AGM remits, page 139. So the staff have, there is the table there on page 140 to 144, and myself, Councillor Gear and Councillor Nelson will be attending the local government AGM. So the remits are there, and I think I'll just go one by one and just see if there's support, and then I'll put that as one recommendation. It's on one recommendation. Okay, we can change the resolution if there is. So on page 140, the tree protection for Auckland Council. So if I can just have a hands up, is there support for the recommendation advice from staff is do not support as the tree protection is provided for in the Wairarapa Combined District Plan for Masterton. So is there support for the recommendation to do not support the remit from Auckland Council? Let's have a raise a hand. Is there?
I do. I'd like to see us support this recommendation because I think the recommendation there really misunderstands the whole thrust of the proposal from Auckland Council, as I understand. Because the question isn't about protection of land, of trees on public land.
It's private.
It's protection of trees on private land, and that's where the problem has been. And our district plan does not protect trees on private land. And so it's quite different. And we, like if that biodiversity strategy is going to come into play and we're going to be encouraged to plant more trees, and then I think we should be supporting this remit. And if you go through the documentation for the notable trees, there is still a whole procedure to go through which protects private interests.
Peter?
I need a little bit more information because I do know about what's going on in the whānau with the SMA.
Yes.
And so this is what is concerning for me, especially for Māori landowners as well, who have initiated with their own nurseries to put their own trees on their whenua. What's concerning is that council will then have some say and right over their whenua. So for me, this is something that needs to be a little bit more discussed other than this, because this remit doesn't really tell you much, and that's what I'm concerned about, is what's going on.
It took a lot of pages to not say too much.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other comments? Councillor Hone?
I'd just like to add that here in the Wairarapa, I don't support this. Here in the Wairarapa we have the QE2 Trust, which is really good, and I think we need to agree that we do need a little bit more information, but we've got a QE2 trustee that I do not support this.
Okay. There's any other, I'm just going to put and ask people to put their hands up.
Can we have a clarification?
Yes.
I think the thrust of this is about protection of trees in the urban areas. It's not about the whole, in the rural areas or across the whole.
Benowit is, okay. So the advice is do not support, so I'm going to go with that. So if we can have a show of hands, this is to enable us to vote at the AGM on these remits. So those councillors who do not support this remit, please raise your right hand. Okay, that's carried, so do not support. Okay. Moving on to the next one, the rating value of forestry land from Gisborne, and that was what Mike Butter in the public forum was speaking to. The staff recommendation is support. Is there any discussion around this remit? And I will share the information that Mike provided, the additional information.
Just clarification, thanks. So was Mike does he support the iPad helping?
Yes.
I think I'm thankful that he came. It is confusing to him, but it's so important because if any area is going to be affected by this, we are here and we need to be right on top of it. And with our rating review coming up, we have that opportunity to look at it.
Absolutely.
So if you want to learn more about it, go and see Mike.
Well, thank you, Kate.
Okay, so I'm going to, is there hands up for support for this recommendation? Okay, that's carried. The next one is the funding of civics education. The advice is to support. Hands up. Okay. The next one is promoting local government electoral participation from Palmerston North. Staff advisors do not support for the reasons that that's been put there. They're not disagreeing with the Electoral Commission. They have a similar mandate.
Just a point of clarification, I just wondered whether this was related to the fact that if we did this and supported it, that it's actually about funding. Am I correct? So to me it didn't make a lot of sense otherwise. It's not about getting more money, then why would you do it?
I'm happy to ask the team to clarify that. My understanding is it's not about funding. One part is, but I'll just ask Angela, who's prepared the report, to speak to you.
For the last couple of elections before the legislation was even changed to bring it under the responsibility of the Chief Executive, there's been a lot of lobbying by the sector to the Local Government Commission and as a result of New Zealand about how do we promote the elections and how do we have much better voter turnout. So this is one angle is to try and make the Commission take a higher responsibility or a bigger share of that responsibility for getting the message out. We don't support it here at Masterton, and that's probably going to be reflected at quite a few councils because they've already had a responsibility and they haven't really shown enough advertising might or spread of their word to change that voter turnout. So we would really like to keep it and be able to put out messages that we think would work with our community better. So tailoring and targeting the promotion around elections we think should be something we do.
So, Councillor Peterson.
The wording that I read in the supporting documentation there really supported Tina's view, I think, that it wasn't about the Electoral Commission taking over, it was about a partnership and which would mean more resources from the Electoral Commission. So quite apart from sort of the takeover, it was just supporting my view.
I didn't read it as that. I took it that it was to remove the responsibilities from Chief Exec back. So
there's a phrase in there that says to work alongside.
Yeah, to work alongside doesn't necessarily mean that there's funding.
That's surely the chair.
Okay, so I'm going to put, so let's have a hands up, item number 4. It is for recommendation is do not support. Is that the one I'm up to? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So can I have a hands up for those that do not support? Carried. Item 5, remit 5, the carbon emissions inventory standards. There's support for recommendation from staff is to support. So I assume that's all been read. So can I have a show of hands for those that support the recommendation? Carried. Item 6, the Work Income New Zealand accommodation supplement. Support in principle, well you either support it or don't, so I'm going to put those that support the recommendation. Can we have a show of hands please? Okay. The last one is 7, the liability building consent functions. Want to support that one? All those in favour? Yep. Carried. So I'm sure that Harriet has made a note of those, so it is through the table?
Yeah.
Okay. So the recommendation will be that Council endorses the remits for the 2021 Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting as per the attached table. So I'm happy to move, have I moved it? Moved and seconded, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Moving on now to item number 16, documents executed under seal.
I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Cappell, seconded by Councillor Gear. Is there any discussion? There appears to be none. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Moving on now to item number 17, the Chief Exec's report. For information on page 216. Did you want to speak to this? Get and take it as read.
I'd like to speak to it for two reasons. One is that the financial results weren't available when the agenda went to print, to use the old parlance. So I'd like to have them received, but not expect that the elected members would have an opportunity to understand them at a particular point in time. They do, however, show that we're on track for the full year, and these will become part of the information that feeds into the annual report that you will do. So if that's allowable, I'd like to have that accepted.
So we need to record that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, yep.
And I guess the report is reasonably self-explanatory, but I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to the overarching statements at the beginning. And obviously today we have out in the public domain announcements on some of the information on our water situation and the DIA's water reform. That obviously is there for everyone to access and has been since 10:30 today. So the report is reasonably accurate in its prediction that the proposal is for 4 entities at this particular point in time, and that there will be some further engagement, which is the new piece, around the exact boundaries of the areas. Just noting that this council is part of a geographic area that now includes 2, the top of the South Island, but that too is to be further discussed. The really nice things at the beginning of the report are that it's great we've got a Matt on board as our new Communications and Engagement Manager. Unfortunately, you haven't been able to meet him in person, but I know that he is sitting there in the ether of virtual meeting world due to the fact that just shortly after he started, the information that was out on spending time in Wellington, and he is unfortunately at one of those locations of interest. So he's been doing the right thing since then. And another fantastic person that we've had start is Jareth, and we're very, very lucky and grateful to have him on board, particularly given his whakapapa and the skills that he brings. And we had a really lovely pukari for him to come into council, and with the amount of work that we've got ahead of us in building strong relationships with iwi, Māori, hapuri, it will be great to have him here assisting us. The other one though, and I brought a little tear to my eye because I do remember when Ra, you spoke about the SHIFT program, and we've just now seen it get national recognition, and in particular for Kata, who has designed the Māori Wairarapa program, and to know that that will have a huge impact for generations to come. Because as much as I'm super delighted to see the skate park under construction, and to know that the master plan for Hood Aerodrome is, coming to a conclusion, knowing that we are investing in our community, and in particular in our young Māori women, and that they will go on to become great leaders, is just such an honour. And I do think the team across community development, but particularly in this area, should stand up and take a bow for this. So yeah, I'm really, really pleased about that.
Yeah.
And I also know and want to acknowledge Corin too for having acknowledged the staff as well, and we've been putting out some messaging. I'm more than happy to take the rest of the report as read and answer any questions or directly with my staff.
Okay, thank you, Kath, and I will acknowledge our thanks to Kata on behalf of elected members as well in an appropriate way. So, thank you. Councillor Cahill.
It's Rushi, I want to get up and embarrass somebody actually, on page 230. I'd love to see the compliment there for Harriet.
Yes.
I think that of all our staff that we deal with, Harriet is the one we deal with most. And I'm always, and I'm a right, if I can put this plainly, I'm a right pain in the arse sometimes, because I don't have great.
Did you get that as a quote?
Computer. I tend to forget things, and Harriet is always there, and she's just so great, and so I just love seeing that compliment for Harriet. So I thought, Harriet, that was the highlight of this entire report.
Okay, Councillor Peterson and Councillor Holmes.
What I've got to say here, it's pretty sad, but I think it reflects the situation, not just in this council, but across all councils, perhaps in New Zealand, or maybe most of them, and actually even with our government. And it actually shows that all of us, the councils, are perhaps exactly where today's editorial, or just by chance, in the Times Age said,
Speaking of something in the report.
Buried in the sand. Yes, I do, yeah. Because and that we are not moving, but across the board, climate action seems too little, too late. And I just, page 270, and I'd also like us to ask ourselves, what does community-led really mean? So at the top of page 217.
Oh, 17.
217. Kathy, you say, I remain proud of all the work that is occurring in this report. There are a number of community-led, council-supported initiatives. Well, then on page 222, we have, and I really support this, and our climate officer has
proposed to us, and we've set up that focus group, and we all agree that it's a great team that has been put together. But it isn't a community-led project. It's a council control project, because we decided the way it was going to operate. We decided when it was going to happen. We put out the registrations of interest. We chose the people from that community. We chose the number that it would be, and and the timing of it. It's still just kicking for touch, because we made that decision in November last year. We have just now gone through the process of appointing that committee. It's going to be 6 months before it reports back, and probably, with luck, later this year or early next year before they get back to us. That's a whole year gone, when the science is telling us the next 10 years, and especially the first 5 of those 10 years, is going to be really important.
So, Councillor, do you have a question?
What I'm talking about, and you've all had emails from me and all that sort of thing, because it's important to me.
Yeah, Your Worship, I'm absolutely over everyone else having to abide by the rules around this table and him not.
Okay.
Well, I want to say that there was concern of the council caravan usage by our community group. Now, that's a really important situation. I think it's a misunderstanding.
Councillor, I've already asked you, do you have a question?
I do have a question. Why was that the caravan not supported?
I think that's...
And that is. And I'd like it doesn't have to be debated here, but it needs to be debated somewhere.
Okay,
because it should have been a political decision and not a management decision.
Okay.
It should have, you supported it. It should have been a decision of this council whether it went or not.
Be seated, and I will ask that staff respond if they haven't already as to the reasons why. Not now, they can respond in due course. Okay, yep. Question
just on page 238, which was the additional paper that was just given to us, we talked at length about disposal of property that's not useful or being used. It's on this one, and I noticed on page 238 it's got includes asbestos removal from Bentley Street, which just prompted me to revisit that conversation again, because I know we were talking about putting our contaminated sites on the market, and wonder if you could update us on that.
I'm more than happy to. We've got 2 things running in parallel. The process with the government on identifying all available land in Masterton, and whether so that land has been included in information that we've provided through to Ministry of Housing as potentially available, depending on what the usage might need to be. We also have, you're right, the resolution to progress as part of a property sale and disposal and the development of that strategy. I don't have an answer for you here today as to exactly when it might go to market, but we were hoping to have a response from Ministry of Housing and Urban Development / Climate Aura around that, and we're not too far away. Lynn, Her Worship's just informed me 19th of July seems to be the date.
Were the rural halls included in that packaging up land available?
No.
That's kind of what happens.
The rural halls piece, you've agreed as part of this to do the work for the long-term plan. Once you've actually made those decisions in consultation with your community, then we will be able to include them in the strategy. Or not, as the case may be.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Holmes.
It's just a question of Kath. I just noticed that you quoted the Ruamahanga River flow in Martinborough. I thought this is not a problem. 221, right then that being the river. Probably would have been more appropriate, I think, using Wardell's Bridge, because Wardell's Bridge is at the end of the Martinborough Council, and also Homebush's heading as well. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to take that.
Just one other question, page 229, it caught my eye. Customer services activity, concern over the interactions for one of the annual grants. I want to know what that
I'd be happy to update after the meeting, and of course when I've had a chance to
Yeah.
Councillor Nelson?
Thank you. Just a question for iwi reps. Just about the Hiona Marae. Can you explain what does reservation status mean? And where is the Hiona Marae?
So your question should come by the chair. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you want me to take that? Kia ora. So Hiona Marae is a parsite that is alongside Gordon Street and was encompassed all of the Henry Lake area. So, and also Hiona was gifted land for educational purposes. So it has significance for especially my whānau, the Haere Kuku whānau who are associated with Hiona Marae. So I hope that answers your question, but I'm happy to take it offline and have a chat with you about it.
Okay, any other questions? Sorry, Ryan.
So I guess we're going to frame this in a question since it's the flavour of the day. In working with that iwi community development, how are we progressing there? Outside of what you've already put in the document, but just in kind of general in terms of I see the detail. I'm just kind of thinking about the overall thing.
So there are a couple of projects that the staff are involved with, for example Matupa and others that are quite obviously iwi-led projects, and it's about supporting and providing information and assisting through planning processes and things like that. We would like to continue to develop the conversations around papakoinga and housing, and so that will obviously proceed at the pace that others wish to engage with us on. And I think when we've got our engagement framework adopted by yourselves and some priority areas for council too, to start engaging around what are the big issues. We wish to review the memorandums of partnership as well in the year ahead, and we're hoping that that will, enable the council to agree with iwi where we should collectively be putting our effort, and where perhaps council doesn't even need to be involved, and it's better to not be, to get out of the way. And then there are the payments, and obviously for participation and capacity building. And then there's a few other things, obviously by seconding our own staff into iwi-led projects, we are hoping that we're contributing valuably there while not diminishing the capability of the council to deliver on its end. So I think, to be really honest, we've got a thing where we're taking steps forward, but when we have some agreed outcomes that we wish to pursue together, then we'll be able to craft projects together.
Sorry, I just checked, Ryan, did you want to follow up on that?
I just wanted to follow up, sorry, thank you. Just wanted to ask if the virtual communications representative, I was wondering what a virtual map looked like, but whether he would like a tour around cultural sites in terms of the Marsden District Council.
Not only the new person to the communications and engagement manager role, but there are a number of staff that would like to take up your kind offer, and also perhaps work in with Rangatane and do that as something soon, but obviously when it suits.
Thank you.
Tito?
Completely left my head now. No, I think there was one thing. Parks and open spaces. I know that we were engaged with, the iwi. Just wanted to have a bit of an update because I had one of the aunties ask me who attended. So what's happened so far? So can we get a little bit more information about what's happening with the parks and open spaces?
Sure. I'm going to have to go to someone else for specific dates because I don't have them in front of me. But all of the feedback and submissions that was made on the strategy has been disseminated for all councillors to look at when they choose to. There will be a briefing on what the feedback looks like and the themes, and I pick up on the previous comments that Councillor Kafal had made, which was to say please make sure that all of the submissions are there. I can assure you they are. So, and in that development too, there is a draft of an implementation plan. So we will have a workshop together in about 2 weeks' time, I think.
7th of July.
Oh, 7th of July. And from there we will bring a paper to the next council meeting, preferably a scheduled one, but yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? There isn't, so I'll just move that hadn't been moved, that the council notes the information contained in the Chief Executive's report and the additional financial information that was tabled, pages 234 to 238. Okay, I've moved it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ryan. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. So moving now, if I could have somebody move that we go into public excluded. Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Mailman. Holmes, Mailman, to go into public excluded. Okay. So thank you everybody. Thank you Marcus. Thank you. So we're now in public excluded. We just need to close down the live streaming.